Hi, everybody. How are you? My name is Natalie, and today we're going to be talking about real estate in Mexico. The reason I'm doing this workshop is because I think it's very important for you to know the truth of real estate here. Not only because it is a little bit risky sometimes, it is because it's for your own protection to understand more about legalities, about your rights, also about the possibilities, timelines, and all these things that you hear about. And you're like, I really want to buy a property in Mexico, but I don't know where to get started. I don't know how to do it. I don't know if I can, first of all. I don't know how, like, what are the financing options and all things. All questions like that will be replying in this workshop. So if you are curious to buy in Mexico, this workshop will be very helpful because we'll go from the A to Z and every single thing in between to make sure you understand. And I have checked these, and we work with attorneys that have put this information together with attorneys, builders, architects, financing partners, and I want to share with you some of the choices that we have here. So first, my name is Nathaly Salas, and I am with Unicorn Properties. You'll see our Unicorn Properties logo everywhere. We're based out of Yucatan, in Merida exactly, and we have agents all around Mexico to help you with your real estate transaction almost in every single corner of Mexico. So our team is pretty vast. And I am going to share just some information on the Yucatan Peninsula this time because a lot of our clients are here. Most of our clients are coming to Merida from the Midwest, and in my prior life, I was a realtor in Chicago. So I am very well versed on anything that has to do with real estate transactions in the US. But at the same time, I want to translate those terms and those ways of doing things to Mexico. So that's why we're here. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. All the fun facts about real estate in Mexico, especially in the Yucatan Peninsula. Let's get started. First, as you know, you can get a hold of me and a hold of anybody in the company scanning this QR code right here, and that will take you straight to our WhatsApp group. We will answer any questions if you have any questions, and also you can follow us in Instagram, follow myself or Unicorn at Nathaly Salas _, and or you can go to Unicorn Prop _ and you'll find us in Instagram as well. For YouTube, you're in YouTube right now, so you have that channel, and you can always text us or call us to this phone number that you'll see on the screen. Let's get started with the agenda. It's going to be a vast agenda, and this workshop might take about half an hour. So make sure that you sit down and get some popcorn, coffee, and understand, the legalities of this. And the reason we put this together is mostly for education. So many of the realtors that work out there in the world, I'm not only saying one country, but in countries that is not regulated, we will have some, discrepancies on how the information is presented. This workshop is strictly for information, so you can make your best decision with the realtor you're working with. It doesn't have to be with us, but if you choose to work with us, we'll be able to give you this advice and the consulting as well as a concierge service. But today is just pure education, just so you know, and just so you have it in mind for anything in the future. So you hear a little bit about our company, what we do, as well as, what are the reason behind Yucatan Peninsula and why it's so awesome. Also, you get some of the property types, financing options, types of down payments, and also some legalities. And my favorite topic is property taxes. So property taxes are my favorite, and mostly the reason I moved here because, in the US, I had investment properties, I had Airbnbs, I had buildings, and the rentals are good and they're consistent until, tenants stop paying. During the pandemic, it didn't go as well. So I sold most of my properties in the US, especially in the Midwest, and moved to Mexico. So now I'm here full time to be able to help you with this one process and repeat the same formula that worked for me, in Chicago and then up north, and replicate it here because we understand how investors think and how they want to get the best, pay for their buck. And most sometimes some realtors that just are in the industry temporarily, they cannot provide these insights that we have been taking the time to put together. We're in business about 4 years, and I have been studying the Mexican market for as long as that. So I'll share with you more about, if you want to build your own house, some areas of construction you might be interested on. If you just want to buy land and build in the future, you don't have to build right now. You don't have to have a place right at this second. But for the future, I think it will be a good option if you want to explore that. So let's keep going. So with Unicorn Properties, as you see, we are affiliated with eXp Realty. eXp Realty is our parent company, and we are a brand within the company of eXp. We are independent. We can work with clients almost in every country. We have 24 countries right now that we cover with eXp, and education. We love studying real estate law, real estate, immigrations, what's the part connected to immigrations, and anything has to do with the benefit of investing outside of, the country you're in this case, let's say the US or Canada. Just to let you know, we are currently in all states of the US with EXP, and we are almost 90,000 agents worldwide. That means we are in 24 countries, spread out mostly North America, but here's our vast network that if you need a realtor in any of these states, you need to sell your house, let's say in Chicago, you need to sell your house in Toronto, and in order to buy in Mexico, we will be able to help you with both transactions. One selling in the country they are from and one buying in Mexico and giving you all the assistance and the consulting for you. This is completely free for you. This is us helping you as an agent, holding your hand through the process, either buying or selling, and whether it's in Mexico or other countries, including US and Canada. So this is just for your information in case you're stuck. You're like, oh, I have contingency right now to sell my house over there to buy here. We will work with you on the, cross borders real estate. These are the countries we're in right now. And as you can see, we are in every single continent. Here's the list of the countries that we cover. So if Mexico is not a cup of tea, let's say, we still have, Dominican Republic, we have Brazil, Puerto Rico, Panama, Colombia, which are very popular destinations to retire, including Portugal and Spain as well. So we have a list here. And the reason that I'm gonna be sharing a little bit of this with you is because when it comes to real estate outside of the US, US is pretty straightforward. You can find all the information online. You can Google it, you'll find it. You ask a realtor, you ask a friend, you ask a financial advisor. They'll be able to help you in anything that has to do with real estate within the US, within Canada. The formula is easy. We repeat it over and over again. But once you step out of the US and you step into a different country, let's say Mexico, Colombia, Panama, you understand a little bit of how the nuances are, but it's not always the same. So here we'll share with you, anything that has is surrounded the real estate space, because here, for example, our clients are always like, yeah, we like to buy, but first of all, can I buy? So we are always explaining our clients, there's a way to do that, and it takes an extra layer of legalities, but you're able to buy an owned property in Mexico. We'll explain how. So if you are interested and you're like, I'm ready to go, but how do I pay for it? So we'll share a little bit of the financing options that not only the sellers, the developers offer, but also what companies we work with for the financing piece. If you're curious about the legal part, we have our attorney in-house. We have our partner that helps clients with anything that has to do with legal contracts. Before you sign a contract, check the land, check in the properties, if the title is clean and anything like that. Because unfortunately, when the market is not regulated in the real estate space, there is a space for scams and fraud. So you have to protect yourself very well in the legal space when it comes to real estate internationally. And in this case, we're going to talk about Mexico. What happens when you make money and then your property is doing well and you're receiving some rent? Where do you pay those taxes? Are they in Mexico? Are they in the US? Are they in Canada? All those things we're going to be working with a tax planning office to make sure that you don't get into any trouble, because you're making now money from your property, but now you don't know where to pay taxes. So of course, somebody's going to have hold their hand like this, like, hey, where are my taxes? Whatever the country is that the money was generated or the money was earned. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It's one of my favorite topics, because it's kind of like when things get complex, right? When I buy something and I don't know what to do, where do I declare my income? Especially now that we're in tax season. We're going to talk about what happens when you buy land, what happens after, like how much is the construction cost? What is the architectural, how creative can you get? How big can you build? How much of the land that you bought you can actually build on? We're going to talk about that as well. We are in partnership with one of the our sister companies that are in construction fully, from A to Z, from like fixing a toilet to all the way to construction. Like, how do you do the water system, the electric system? What happens, when there is this biodigestor that I'll share more information about. So all these things that come into construction are going to be very important for you if you decide to proceed to buy a piece of land and then develop after. We have also the immigrations part, do you have to be a citizen? Do you have to be a resident? What if your parents are Mexican? What if your spouse is from the country from here? So we'll talk about immigrations too, and what are the possibilities and what are the benefits of being a Mexican citizen. Even though you have your American passport, if you were born in the US, this is very important because you don't know the benefits of having a residency and also a citizenship from Mexico, especially with the benefits that are happening now and how the economy is growing. So make sure to keep this in mind. We have some attorneys as well that will work on immigrations, and that way we can help you with this step on, what happens. Do you have to become? You don't have to, but if you want to, there's ways to do it. There's also the property management, of course, super important. When you have a property here, what happens? Who maintains it? Who's going to check it? Who's going to open the doors? Who's going to manage the guests and all things like that? We have that available as well. And on top of that, if you decide to move here full time, let's say we have relocation partners that will help you bring all your stuff that you want to bring from wherever you're from down to Mexico. So in that way, we have a very good partner out of Costa Rica, and he's in one of our podcasts as well, and he will help you with anything that has to do, like from moving a TV to moving expensive art, huge furniture, because everything has a way of doing things. It's not like you wake up and put everything in a truck and you go. There's customs, there's a lot of risk on the way, there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of, and that is one of our partners that will works with us for that, and we'll share more information on that after. So let's talk a little bit about the peninsula. I don't know if you know the story, but I'll tell you the story. And not to bore you too much, but it's one of my favorite stories on why Yucatan. Yucatan for us is very special. Like, it has a feel to it, and you believe in energy. It has this energy around this that it is just a different place. It's like almost like a different planet. So the reason is that the theory is that there was a meteor that hit the Earth, and then where the epicenter was Yucatan Peninsula. So Yucatan Peninsula is here in Mexico, really close to Florida, right? Almost next to each other. And that's where it hit and exploded. So when it exploded, all the dinosaurs, that's when everything, the epicenter was, and everything got extinct on Earth. So this is the story and why Yucatan, it has so much energy, it's so special. And also this explains why we have cenotes. And cenotes, I'll share a little bit more about cenotes in a minute, but this is why this area is so energetically charged of very nice, like things and minerals, and the air, the weather is just very, very interesting, very special to live here. Besides, of course, the beautiful beaches that we have in this area. Yucatan Peninsula, that's how it got started. And then if you see from outer space, you can see a crater in this area that you will explain where the explosion was. And that's what happened here. So that's what thousands and thousands of years ago, that's what the story says. So here we are in the map. If you can see Yucatan Peninsula here, this area, the huge peninsula over here, Florida is over here on the right side. But the story behind this is because from Cancun to Tulum, that area is like very touristic, it's a lot of fun. And this is the most touristic area in Mexico. The beach is beautiful. And the beach and the beautiful of the beaches over here extend all the way to Merida as well. So we're here in the other side. In the other side of the peninsula, let's say Tampa and Miami. It's almost similarly, but it's backwards, right? The other way, Miami is the other way. But we are in two different states. This is not Florida. This will be, for example, Quintana Roo and Yucatan. Two different states, two different ways of being, two different rules, two different laws. And even though they're next to each other, and even though we're still in Mexico, they're still slightly different. And the reason we work in Yucatan, we'll explain later, is mostly because of compliance and because Yucatan is more tech friendly. I'll tell you more stories about that. So here, we're going to work about these two states. Campeche we won't cover today, but that way Belize is down here and Guatemala is right here. So that way you just get familiar with what's happening where we're located, where Merida, and all this peninsula we're talking about. So let's talk about the cenotes and why I mentioned that. So the cenotes, as I mentioned, the meteor hit the Earth, and it was a ball of fire that just went down the Earth and exploded everything. And with this, a lot of bubbles, water, earth, rocks got like mixed into the explosion, and then that starts solidifying itself, and it created the cenotes. The cenotes are like, like a bubble got hard, and then now it's like a shell. So it is underground cave. It's formed by many rocks, a lot of vegetation. It's very tropical. And then the water and the tunnels can be as shallow as just that cenote or can connect with other cenotes. So there is underground water systems that got formed because of that explosion. And that's what I share about the story because many people don't know about it, and it's super important to understand that. Let me see. Let's go to the next slide. And this is going to be talking about Cancun area. So this is the other side of the peninsula. Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum. Some fun facts about the Cancun airport are that as of 2022, the intake of people was almost $30 million. 30 million people, I'm sorry, not dollars, more than that probably, but 30 million people coming in 2022. As the volume of guests, tourists, this area is so rich on everything that has to do with tourism because of the beach and the coastline is amazing. So the volume of flights is like almost 500 flights per day. Then we have about 75% international flights into Cancun and 25 national. A few fun facts is the second busiest airport of Mexico and the third one in Latin America. Currently, be mindful that in Cancun Airport and Cancun area, Playa del Carmen and Tulum, Uber is not available, is not allowed. It's the taxis are the ones that will help you with any transportation. It's a little expensive, but we don't have Uber. So keep that in mind because some people come here, try to open the app, you cannot go anywhere. You have to take a taxi. So it's better if you arrange your transportation from the airport to wherever you're going, because otherwise you're going to pay premium price if you take a taxi. And if you rent a car in the airport, it's going to be also long lines. And I've done this many, many times. I sit there for 2 hours and I'm still not done with the car yet. So be mindful of that because transportation logistics is better if you prepare ahead of time. And we have a partner that's a travel agent that helps us with all these things related to transportation, attractions, fun things to do in the peninsula. And you'll meet her in one of our workshops. We're going to interview her. So these are some fun facts and the reason that the Tulum airport was created. So where is the Tulum airport? Tulum airport is near Tulum because it's down here. So it is closer to downtown area. It's just it's like about 90 minutes from Cancun because there's a big distance, but now you can fly directly to Tulum. And this was made and launched this past year in December 2023 to alleviate the traffic coming down. Imagine all those flights coming through Cancun. They all want to, not all everybody, but half of them want to go to Tulum, so they have to do the trip about 90 minutes to 2 hours on the road. So now it will be easier to do this when you land in the Tulum airport and then you go up. So some numbers here for you to know and how the Tulum airport is growing. It's just recently got launched. They're still finishing some areas. They fly from cities directly from Atlanta, Charlotte, and the list here. And then these are the airlines that have already, they're in partnership with Tulum Airport. Some distances from Tulum Airport to Tulum downtown will be about 20 kilometers or 12 miles. And before it used to be 116 kilometers or 72 miles if you went from Cancun to Tulum in car. So you're saving a couple hours in commuting, so that's good. But there's still no Uber, so you cannot take an Uber here. Some airlines that I mentioned. So let's go to the Tren Maya. Why an investment here is so important and is growing as we speak. So a lot of the speculation that there was going to be a train one day had the public waiting for this train, and it was supposed to be from all these routes. Because now it's a reality. So now we can go from Cancun to Tulum, and they're still testing right now the roads, but the train officially launched in December 2023. So these are the dates officially by the government, and some stretch of train are not fully ready yet, but they're in progress. And there is going to be a connection between Cancun and now Merida. So that's why we're excited because now there's going to be a train that will take you. They calculated maybe 1 or 2 hours, 2 hours probably, but driving is like 3.5. So even if you land in Cancun and you go to Merida, it's still a little bit of a trip. Some people just fly to Mexico City and then they fly to Merida, but that's, two stops. So make sure that you know the routes, but the Tren Maya now is going to alleviate a lot of the traffic going south and going west. So a few fun facts about the train: 973 miles of length, and it's connecting all these 5 states right now, and I'm sure they're gonna extend more. So you'll see more progress on what the Tren Maya looks like, what are the prices, and everything that has to do with that. And we'll be reporting as soon as we know what's the newest, prices and what's the distances and all that. This was able to create about almost 7,500 jobs because of the creation of this train. So there was a lot of a boost in the economy in these 2 states. Real estate. So let's talk about my topic, my favorite topic, real estate and investing. Just the same way that I was doing it in the US. I thought that you might be interested to see, a similar approach on the real estate, but abroad, with a mindset of investing, getting some money or a lifestyle that at least will pay for itself, and you don't have to take any money out of pocket. You still will have to take money out of pocket, but that depends on the investment type. So let's talk about properties, types of properties. When it comes to type of properties, we're just gonna put in this example 4 of them, which are the most common ones here in Mexico. We have the pre-built developers that are the ones that are going to launch in the future, but they're not ready yet. So maybe you see the land, you see the space, you see a project, you see renders, and you see architectural plans, but you won't see the actual building, you don't see the actual structure. So the pre-built developers is maybe 80% of the whole market in the peninsula. So 80% of the sellers will be selling you in a project for the future. There's a few things I'll mention to that. There is some risks involved, and you have to be mindful of who you work with, because some developers are, sometimes the compliance part is not 100% there, and we'll talk about that later on. So it's done for you. It's built according to project in a time frame. It's a hands-off construction, and they just give you your key when it's ready, either when it's finished and you finish the finishes, or they give you the keys and it's fully furnished. It depends on your contract. We have the built assets, which is everything else we have that is already built, is standing on its own, and it has a title, but maybe had another prior owner, probably did, and there's a house, condo, a townhouse, or a villa. That's very important to keep in mind separate, because the financing will be separate as well. So keep these two, they're 2 different things. One of them is, pre-construction, the other one is a finished product. We have, of course, land, and we have a lot of lots available for sale, and it depends on the type of property that you like to get and the type of amenities. So there's a lot of options on land, especially in Yucatan. And then you have to be very mindful, super mindful, that ejidal is a keyword, write down, that you cannot forget, because ejidal, it's a land that an international person cannot own directly. So there's gonna be a layer of legality for this. So make sure that if you hear ejidal anywhere, just don't buy that, because it's not for foreign buyers, it's mostly for nationals, Mexicans that have the right, or that are citizens here, and they can work on getting ejidal as a group of people. Is community owned. So it's gonna be very hard for you to settle this one. It's possible over time, it takes time, but I don't recommend it. If you're new to the market, please don't buy ejidal land. It's not gonna be pretty getting out of the problem. There's also, land with gated communities, and we have a lot of that available. There's open land where you can usually have like a mixed use. You have your store at the bottom, you have your house on top, you have your restaurant, you have a coffee place. Things in Mexico are simple. You can just set up shop and downstairs and open your spot. So there's, of course, some regulations by county, but I call it open land, like the land that is not in a gated community, is very nice as well, because you can have mixed use of that asset. And then we'll have, of course, pre-construction, custom construction, that it has to do with anything that, you bought a piece of land here, and 2 years later, you're like, I want to build my house, and I want to make it my own way. I want to make my own style, design, and finishes. So this is like a, custom home that will be built just for you, and that's very common in Mexico. People love doing their own house, their own way, and that's kind of the trend. And you can get as creative or as colorful as you like, depending on where you are, where your, lot is sitting. That's what I'm doing. I'll be building 2 new constructions coming up, and I will be sharing more information about all my construction process, because I love getting like to the details. and showing that information is kind of like my favorite thing to do. Let's go financing super fast, because financing will vary by the type of asset that you have. So the pre-built, as I mentioned, to keep them both separately in mind, they're not the same and they don't have the same financing type. The one that is the pre-built part will be mostly seller's finance. It will be seller's finance, and the developer will guide how the payments are going to be made, by when is the delivery time, and you have all that time to pay the lot off, or the land or the project off. Then we have the built assets, and those are the only ones that can get a bank loan, like a regular bank loan. Can also be seller's finance, but it's easier sometimes to get a loan from the bank or a private lender. And make sure that with pre-built, you will be talking with the seller for the financing piece until the land has a title. So you cannot have any loan, any mortgage on, on air. So that's the reason that you cannot get a loan for these pre-construction projects. Usually the seller will be the one financing you that, to make sure that you can pay it off by the time they give it to you, and then you're clear of debt. Let's see. And of course, I have a note here that I forgot about, that most banks in the US and Canada will not lend to buy a property abroad. We tested almost every bank, and they say nope. We were able to do in one of our properties was to do a refi cash out in the US and bring some cash here to buy land, but that, and then the loan is in the US. That was when the interest was low. Right now, I don't know if I recommend it at all, but it's up to you, how the interest is, where you are right now. But yeah, most banks won't lend on a property that is not in the US or Canada if it's a Canadian bank or if it's a US bank. Also, there is, another program that we are working with that is for Canadians to be able to borrow from, like the 401k, our RSPs, I believe they're called. And we have a partner for that can help, in case you're curious. These are some lending options that we have in Mexico, and it varies by type of property. But if you want to take a note of that, who they are and how they're partners, external partners, we work with them. We have sent clients too, and some of them are they have different requirements, different types of paperwork that you need to submit. But it's not that hard. So you can check CBI and Ducas Express for financing, and then we have Simon Con for anything that has to be above $2 million USD. How does it work? So the developer, we're talking about seller's financing. So seller's financing is right here, the pre-built developers seller's financing. And in this case, we're going to talk about how it breaks down the payments. So here we're going to go and do our enganche, they call it enganche, which is like the earnest money. And we do about $5,000, or depending on how much is it, 5% of the total value. And that's just for them to give you the contract so you can read it over and say, yes, I like it, or no, or remove this, add this. And then you have that time for negotiation. Usually 2 weeks are the time frame that are stipulated in the contracts. Yeah, 15 days to be like, I don't like it, I'm leaving, I want my money back, and they are liable to give you your money back. So then if you say, no, I like it, I'm gonna go with it, so that's part of your down payment. And your down payment comes right after. Usually it's about 30% of the full amount of the property. So if your property is 100,000, we're talking about 30,000. If your property is 300,000, then you have to probably get 90,000 out of pocket or so to get your down payment ready. And then we have the agreement of how you decide and how you agree to pay the developer on the rest of the balance. So let's say that you have an option to do monthly. So you divide, let's say how many months the developer will give you. Some developers give you 1 year, 12 months. Sometimes they give you 60 months. Sometimes they give you 180 months. So we have very generous developers that are able to finance up to 15 years, no interest. It's crazy. I'm like, how do they do that? We have really good developers that we have scouted that are, they don't require the whole money right away, the 1 year or 2 years are the most common ones. So imagine to just come up with, In this case, if the property is $100,000, just come up with 70,000 within a year, which is pretty hefty. And if not, maybe 2 years. But this is the way that most people have done it. They break it out, 30, 70, and the 70 can be paid monthly, quarterly, every 6 months, or a balloon payment at the end. That will vary. That's one of the most used, but I'm just sharing with you so you get a big idea. Regarding the legal process on pre-construction, that's the seller's finance part, I want to make sure that you understand that you need an attorney almost in every single step of the way. The good news is that it's not as expensive as the US, but the bad news is that I don't recommend you to even put a contract, give a contract or sign a contract unless you have an attorney by you, even as a friend, like, hey, can you help me with this? Or if you don't know somebody, we can recommend somebody that will help you with validating if what you're signing, it's good and it benefits you as a buyer. Because there are many cases that developer will put clauses there to justify that they're late or to justify why they didn't finish the project, the way that they said they're going to do it. So I recommend having an attorney at the beginning, during, and after the sale. So that same attorney can take care of the closing, they can take care of the checking the contract at the beginning, and they can do a little follow-up on checking for you where they are in the building process, and if there has been any issues, any lawsuits, anything like that, that she or he might know, that probably they will advise you on that. Super important, because the due diligence at the beginning is almost as important as the whole thing. Like, I don't recommend anybody going by themselves trying to read a contract, because sometimes half the time they don't make any sense. Like, I'm like, what am I reading? So make sure that you check that. There's a promise letter that will be done on your behalf, that you will be paying this amount of payments for that X amount of time. And then, of course, then you proceed, if you agree with everything, with the down payment. During the process of paying, you will just have a structure on, how much money you will pay each time. And then based on that, you will be, after you're done paying, you'll be ready for closing. Too much talking. During, we have a monthly payment schedule, and then we have the delivery. I want you to understand that the delivery of the unit doesn't mean that your title will be ready right there in there. So it's not always the case that happens at the same time. Sometimes you can pay off the whole amount and you're done paying your home. They give you the keys and then you go for closing. But when you go for closing, it's not like they're like, give you a title, sir, signs here, it's all your property. Not always is the case. It's very rare that that happens at the same time. Having a title, structuring the condo association or whatever you're, established, usually probably is going to have some sort of like a society, like a group agreement of like, this building will be, it used to be a land and now it's 12 units. So now they're gonna have to divide everything on the equity and the taxes based on the size of each unit and the amount of each unit. So the title, the keys and the title might not be on the same date. So I had to always emphasize with our clients, because they expect to go to closing and sign a document that says, okay, now this is mine. Not so fast. But there's a process of the during, after you get the keys and then the post sale. The fideicomiso is the one thing I want to chat with you about in more detail, because it's super important when the fideicomiso is issued, and that is when you're going to have the title. You want to transfer the title, we have the closing, that day the fideicomiso is created. And there's another option, that if you don't do fideicomiso, you can do a company, and that will vary based on your needs, and we can talk about that. We have an interview about that with Miriam. It's a long interview, like 20 minutes, but it tells you everything about the difference between the fideicomiso and creating a company like an LLC to hold your assets. We'll share more about that. But in case that the most common case is like 80%, 90% of people choose the fideicomiso because they only want one property and they just want to keep it as a rental, but it's not your main source. It's not like what you do every day, like real estate transactions and real estate investment, unless that's what you do, and that's where you need a different fideicomiso. But this one is a simple one property, and then you'll be able to put that property that you buy there, and it's protected. The post-sale, as I was sharing, is the title registration. Then we have the appraisal inspection, and the HOAs will be assigned based on the size and the requirement amount of money that is needed to maintain this property. Anything same as the US, same as Canada, HOAs are simple. And then, of course, as long as the neighbors pay for it. Then the taxes will, kick in to make sure that once you have your title, that you start paying property taxes, which are very little. There's so little. I'll share more information about that. So the developer guarantees usually about a year post sale of any issues of the structure of the building. If it's details, like wood was chipped or something during construction, they'll fix that too. There's some developers better than others that help with that, but just to let you know, that's kind of the every step of the way. This is about legal, everything legal. Please make sure that you always check with an attorney, and we'll be able to share information about our partner in case you have any questions. She does free consultations. Make sure that you check with her, because we vetted a lot of attorneys, and we ended up just like working with very few, because we don't like to recommend anything that we wouldn't use ourselves as a service. The fideicomiso is an interesting, it's a tool, it's like a trust. So when we're talking about the fideicomiso here, it has to do with an extra layer of protection that Mexico does. So the borders and the beach coast is protected. And the reason that they created this is because, as you know, as we know history, the history behind the fideicomiso is to avoid invasion of land or taking land, being taken away, their land from other countries. And, I don't want to talk about history or touch any interesting, points, but the reason that they have this, like a law, they have this requirement for international buyers, is that within 50 kilometers of a coastline or a borders are 100 kilometers, I think. So from the border to 100 kilometers in, you're not able to own land under your name fully, but you can own it through the fideicomiso, which is the trust. And you can own it fully, and it's legal, and that's your land, but it will be through this extra trust that you will be given if you are in the borders. All the beach homes are going to be required to have a fideicomiso because they are by the beach. So then this will apply to almost everything that has to do in the Yucatan Peninsula and Quintana Roo. The reason that this was created is to avoid any other country which in the border to set up a military base and then direct it at the country, because that has happened in the past. And then there's a lot of, not only for Mexico, but many countries that, they set up by the borders, they put a military, and then they attack their own, the country. That's what they're trying to protect. Their borders. It's fair, and it's very inexpensive. So it's kind of like we're paying our rights to be in Mexico and own land and be respectful of the land, because we're not here to grab everything or to own everything, but we are respectful of whatever is there, and then also to all the laws that we need to follow to make sure that we're compliant. The fideicomiso, there are different types, as I mentioned. If you are doing real estate as a full-time, is that one type of fideicomiso or company. Rental, resale, if you're developing and selling right away, that's a different type of fideicomiso, and there's several types. But the one that, in this case, is the one that is created is for one property for tax purposes, to make sure that they are the bank trust is representing you in front of the government. And there's more information that we have about this, but in this slide, I still want to mention so you know about it. And the initial cost, this is part of the closing cost. So this is kind of a closing table, one of the items that you'll be seeing in the closing statements. This is the setup cost. You pay that to the bank, they'll set it up for you, and then the stars. It covers the first year. So then the second year, you will be paying a yearly of $500 to $800 a year to the bank for the trust renewal every single year for 50 years. After 50 years, you can renew it, or your kids can inherit it, or somebody that you transfer it over, you can keep it after that. But you are able, and I haven't heard anybody with the issue that their 50 years didn't get renewed. First, because I haven't met anybody for 50 years that has gone to the 50-year mark. But the second part is because Mexico loves investors and they want to encourage more investors to come. So the last thing they want to do is bother you too much with all these legalities. Some banks that have this option are these ones, and Intercam actually is is the only bank that accepts international foreign people. With a passport, you can open a bank account. Most banks don't allow that. So having a bank account in Mexico is a little hard. But once I discovered Intercam, I was like, oh my God, they give me a bank account, I can build my credit and everything in Mexico. So yeah, that's very exciting. Intercam is a very good bank so far that we're working with, but there's other banks that will help you with fideicomisos. What is taxes? And the reason I'm going to mention taxes is because it's my favorite topic. It's like I love it. So the valor catastral of a property versus valor comercial. Sometimes a property will be registered by the value of, many years ago when it was land, but the value of commercial value will be the value that you will buy in this asset from, like if it was like one day was like $10,000 and now it's $100,000 because of the value added, and the valor comercial is, there's a building now there's more things in there, so then there's going to be a little more taxes. But the reason that I'm mentioning this is because, yes, you pay taxes out of the larger amount, which is valor comercial. And in this case, this is a real case scenario. We run these numbers with our accountant and attorney, and I actually saw the tax bill, and I can tell you my tax bill as well as an example. But this is a real case study. So let's talk about 165 square meters of built house. It's a unit that has been built. It's pretty big, 1,700 square feet, if you want to see it in square feet. And what is the requirement in here? So this is the size, and the amount of money that the client paid for it was 155,000. So this is about 3 million pesos, depending on the conversion. But let's say 155,000 for 1,700 square meters. And the taxes on these will be on the size and on the value. So if you pay the whole property tax in full, it will be about 5,500 pesos. So if you have it to your calculator and you go to the today's rate, you divide that right now by 16. Let me see, 16. And this was calculated at 17 pesos per dollar. So right now we're showing to be, you pay $343. That would be your tax liability. And I had to check if this is every 6 months, but they will give you a discount actually if you pay in full and you pay everything, like the full amount at the early price. So then in January and February, that's when they motivate most of the homeowners to pay the property tax ahead of time. So that way they give you a discount of like 10-15%. So look at your property taxes. This is crazy. Like multiply this by 2 because you have to pay taxes every 6 months. But I mean, we're talking about under $700 per year in property taxes for a 1,700 square foot home. And that cost about 155,000, or the value catastral is that. So then you are talking about $700 max in property taxes. And this is expensive for Mexico, meaning the property taxes here in Tulum area in the Yucatan Peninsula are more expensive than the rest of Mexico. So if you're in Merida, it's even cheaper. If you are in England, it's cheaper. If you're in the middle of the country, it's a little cheaper as well. So this is the worst case scenario. Like that's the most you will be paying in property taxes every 6 months. And imagine that this is like a tax bill for in the US, like, like the full year that you pay here in Mexico, you pay in the US every month. So if you're $700 per year for your property, in the US is $700 per month. So I think that's my tax bill right now. So it's $700 per month times 12. This is an average in the US of your property taxes. I don't know if you pay that, but I'm very close to pay for that in that amount for one of my Airbnbs. Because the taxes are going up in the US every single day. So here having a break in taxes in your it gets cheaper to live here and it's less expensive to own property here. I mean, any money that you make on top of that is just revenue. So yeah, very good investment opportunities here, mostly because of the fixed costs are lower. I was talking about cenotes earlier, and I'm going to share more about the meaning behind this and why is it important. I mean, it's nice, it's touristic. I'll go and take I'll swim there. But why is it important to know what it's all about? Because when you're doing a building, when you're doing construction, and you encounter a cenote, your whole construction plan will change. So then the cenotes are not just for fun; they're for you to be aware that when you're building, you have to be conscious about the depth of the land and how much construction you can put on top of the land. Because if it's a shallow land, because it's a cave underneath, you cannot build a building for like 7-floor building. You cannot maybe build a 4 floors, probably just 1 or 2. So it's important that you know the land before you buy, because if you have underground or it's hollow, or it's shallow, and there's some like holes in between, you probably won't be able to build whatever you had in mind. But yeah, that's what I'm mentioning cenotes. I'm bringing it up again because construction has everything to do with cenotes. We have to understand the land and the depth and how solid and strong it is before we start buying and building, and before we buy. So many people buy without knowing the density of the land, or if the land is protected. So something that I wanted to share is that ground density is just so important here. It's more than permits, in the US. If you don't have the study of the ground density, like the topography study, topografía is in Spanish, topography, I think it's in English. But if you don't have this study done, it will be very hard for you to understand the density of your land. And this can be done and be searched by the attorney at the beginning of the search when you buy land. But make sure that you do check this, because many people have bought protected land, and the protected land is just protected. So you will buy land to just host the trees and the birds and the animals that are going to be there, but you can never build there. So make sure that when you check you're buying land, that has to be said in the contract. What's the zoning, what are the permits, if any, because buying land is less expensive, so it's cheaper, but it also comes with a risk factor that you need to know where you're buying, what are you buying, and if you want to build a house there, if you can. So that's going to be very, very interesting when we talk about, construction. Yucatan has a lot of cenotes, as I mentioned. There's, depending on what you want to build, houses or buildings, make sure that you have a topography study, zoning, depending on what you want to do, a hotel, villas, your own house, your retreat center. It can be anything, but you have to check these for construction purposes, and what are the green areas forced by or required by the developer if you're buying within a gated community, or by the city if you're buying outside land, open land, I call it. So construction area usually is kept within 60 to 70%. So if you have a 200 square meter lot, 2,000 square feet lot, then be mindful that you can only build maybe up to 70%. So this is good because it keeps the nature growing. We don't have that, some developments that wiped everything and everything is concrete in the middle of the jungle. So I don't know who does that, but it doesn't look nice when they just wipe all the trees and they don't leave any green. And that's what there's some requirements and guidelines on how to follow this. Gated communities have different guidelines, and they will give you all this study ready to go because you're already buying within a explored land. It's not like you're just buying from a third party and you don't know what they're selling. You have to be very mindful who you're buying from. Okay, construction. Construction is one of my favorite topics because I'm doing construction right now, and I'm gonna be building my house on the beach from scratch. So it's just a piece of land open, and now I had to, we had to create something from nothing. I love it because it's a white canvas, and if you love creativity and you like construction and you have the patience for it, if you did renovations in your house, or if you did flips in the US and you know how to do this, let me build something to create value, you will love this part. So for construction, first, of course, you have to do the legal permits. It will vary by location and by city. The pre-project and the proyecto is very important for you to understand the timeline, and the city approval, of course, for everything. Depending on where you build, you'll be getting different requirements, different permits, and you will know that with your builder, with your architect. The architects usually sometimes are the builders and the construction company all in one. Sometimes they work separately, but I'd rather work with somebody who does the whole project, because otherwise one does the design and then the other one does the builder. They don't understand each other, or they don't, I'd rather them all talk to each other. The pre-project, of course, you have to get again, checking all this compliance stuff. Where you're gonna put your biodigestor, which is a septic tank. Who's gonna be your project manager, who's gonna be checking on your land, etc. So what's the cost? How much it costs to build? The cost of construction, they call it obra negra. Obra negra is a very important term for you to know. And obra negra is mostly the picture that you see on the right, this one. This is just the structure of the house. The walls, the brick walls, the ceiling, all that, how it looks like right here. This is obra negra. This is the white canvas. And then after that, you can dress it however you want. The details, the finishes, the windows, the details, everything like that, it just costs extra because, of course, it's just based on your customization and your taste and on the materials that you pick. So here you'll see, obra negra, the shell, and that's the cost. I put here the cost per square foot. So they are quoting us to $110 per square foot. This is about $1,100 per square meter. So it depends on how you want to see it or how you want to multiply it. So all you have to do is like, how many square feet do you want in your house and multiply by that amount. The obra negra, as I mentioned, is just the bare bones. Finishes are up to the client, and this can be quoted, and some architects will give you the full, breakdown. And we have in our team a very good architect that will give you that, project before you get started, before, just from the concept to the realization, to the construction, to delivery. So all that is very important for you to keep in mind. An example of sizes, how much is, 1,100 square feet house, how much will that be? Probably about 110,000, depending on the exchange rate, of course. And we're quoting in dollars at 17, I think it's $17 here per 17 pesos per dollar. So you have to multiply that, make sure if the dollar went down, then you adjust for that. We have a calculator that we can share with you to play with it and do all the calculations based on today's rate. There is in USD is here, and square meters. 100 square meters is about similarly 110K USD, and this will give and take vary some, minor give and take an 8 or 10, but it is about that, depending how big you want your house is how much it's going to cost you. If you want a 500 meters square, 500 square meters or 5,000 square foot house, then it's a different story. It's just multiply, just keep adding to it. I want to share about the biodigestores. Septic tanks are super, super important in this area because it's an ecosystem of cleaning its own water and filtering its own water. So these are very common in the Yucatan Peninsula and Riviera Maya because the sewers are not connected and the cities just have each house do their own septic tank. This is part of the architectural process and the construction, so you don't have to worry about that, but I want you to understand that it's necessary. So if they mention they want to create a septic tank on your land, on your lot for your house, don't be surprised that this is the way to go, the common way to go when it comes to these type of constructions, especially because the land in Yucatan is very hard. Remember the dinosaurs explosion, hard rock. So then building pipes through the land is just hard. So each place does their own cleaning of the waters. And this is very common in countryside of the US. Many places they have this, but here is more common than not. So make sure that you keep the cost in mind. It's about 30,000 pesos or $1,700 to get the system in place, depending on who installs it and what parts do you need. That will vary and probably maybe a little more, a little less. I don't think it's gonna be less, it's gonna be more because the dollar keeps going down and the peso keeps getting stronger. So it's just gonna get more expensive over time. That's why we encourage all our clients to buy sooner than later before the dollar drops too much and you can afford less. So some risks to keep in mind, and these are super important, and I want you to keep in mind or take a screenshot of this screen because I think if you don't know what can go wrong, probably you'll be caught in one of these situations. And I can read it for you, but I'm gonna mention some of the basic ones because every single one is important. So some risks you need to consider, and I'm talking to you as a friend, I'm not talking to you as a realtor, I'm talking to you as I want more people to understand the process and have a good experience. I don't want people to be disappointed, heartbroken, or that what they thought, they will have at the end didn't happen on time. So this is very common for risks to consider. And of course, you can ask us any questions when it comes to every single one of here. And we've lived this one firsthand. That's what I'm sharing with you, that you have to keep it in mind. First, you need to know that there is no universal MLS. So when you talk to your realtor, and they'll be like, yeah, I have this list of products. And then you won't be able to see everything. Like the Zillow, you put your zip code, you're like 606, whatever, and you'll find like a list of properties in that area, a study, a market study, the map and everything. We're very spoiled in the US. We have all the data. But in Mexico, there is no such a thing as the MLS. There is no Zillow, and there is no like statistics, trends, how the market is doing. That doesn't exist yet. So the data is getting collected right now. And with some AI efforts, we probably will be able to work with another company or help gather all this data. But the realtor, the everyday realtor might not have all the data that you need because they are limited to the area they cover. So that's why we work with realtors in different parts of Mexico that know very well their markets and they can find the best deals. It's like you're shopping with off-market deals all the time in Mexico. No universal MLS, don't expect one. If somebody sends you a report, it's because they spend time doing it manually. There is a fragmented database for information and sources. The city might have some information, they still do things in paper. The reason we prefer Yucatan Peninsula versus Quintana Roo, which is Cancun, Tulum, and Playa, is because of the Yucatan is so friendly when it comes to technology. You're able to go and put your PIN number, which will be a equivalent of the PIN number here, and you can find information about that lot, that house, who was the prior owner and everything like that, because they keep everything digital. Well, Quintana Roo, everything is still in paper. So even though we're next to each other, it's so different in processes. That's what the fragmented databases will, you'll find that that one state might not have this information, or one city doesn't have the information from the city next to them. It's very manual. So a lot of the work is done by attorneys and by people who just goes to the city and ask questions in person. So you need to have a very good team locally to find out every single piece of this information that you need when you own property here. The real estate is not regulated, so unfortunately, anybody can wake up one day and be a realtor. So a lot of, there's a joke going out there. The best realtors in Riviera Maya are the taxi drivers. Why? Because they will be the ones taking you to your place and you'll be like, oh, do you know this? Do you know that restaurant? Do you know, diving? Where can I dive? Where can I go and see, turtles? Oh, any real estate agent? And usually the real estate agents will be taxi drivers because they don't require a license to bring you to a development that might sell you something that doesn't fit your needs. So there's a lot of people that just become a realtor overnight, and there's no requirement for license. There is nothing that they need to follow. They don't need to follow a class to be a realtor here in Mexico or Colombia or even Spain. They don't require that. Little by little, they're requiring some titles, but it's not mainstream. And the developers don't care if you have a title or not, if you're a realtor or no realtor, or if you pay your dues to the NAR. It just doesn't, they don't care. Because if you bring the client, if you bring the client and you're a realtor or not, they don't ask you for your title to pay you. They're like, oh no, bring me the client, I'll pay you the commission. So be mindful. I could tell you the story in a different way, but if somebody brings you to buy something and they're gonna get paid a commission, they are kind of liable and loyal to the developer, not to you, because you don't know the law, and they don't know the law either, probably. So just be careful with those one-time realtors, because you will be kind of be taken advantage of because you don't know and you're trusting somebody that you just happen to like on the way to your hotel. That sounded weird. Okay, never mind. Okay, so then again, we rely on manual steps, low tech, challenges with property and title issues because there's no tech, so we don't know who's the prior owner. So we have to go and check with the attorney to go into the city to make sure that they know who the prior owner is and how many owners are there. So there is a lot of potential for scams and fraud because of this. Because of this is that the attorney is necessary in every single step of the way to make sure that there is no litigation, right? There's no risks that will be affecting the assets, the house or the lot. It's very important to check that. There's a lot of overpromising and under delivering for developers because they will tell you that the return on investment is like 40%, and I wonder where they got the number from, but I'm like, I don't think. And then they say the appreciation will go up, and blah blah blah, and a lot of overpromising. And at the time that you're buying, you will be overpaying because they oversold you. So make sure that you're mindful of this. A lot of developers, most of them are really, really good, but some of them don't finish on time. don't finish with the quality they're going to, they say they're gonna finish, and they don't structure the HOAs, like smartly to benefit the end user. They just do it for, their own purpose. And it's gonna be a little bit of a pain if you don't take the measures in place beforehand. There is time perception, like I will do it mañana, I will do it tomorrow, and then, oh, I told you Tuesday, no, I meant Thursday. So then, oh, no, like it's like working with a contractor, right? It varies in every single country. It's this, similar. Like if you find a good contractor that you like because it meets the deadlines, you love them. That you're gonna work with them again. You're gonna recommend it to everybody. But in this case, the time is perception. So not everybody will finish on time. It's like a guideline. It's not a must. People are not on time always. Very few people. It's not in the culture. I'm Peruvian, and it's not in my culture. So expect those little things that might drive you crazy if you're always on time and you follow everything by the book. There is a little bit of vulnerability with the currency. Exchange rates vary. If I give you a price in dollars today, it might not be the same tomorrow. And it's not because I'm changing the price. It's because the market is fluctuating. So if I tell you it's 4 million pesos today, and then the peso keeps going up and the dollar keeps going down, so that will affect the price that I gave you yesterday, because then I have to adjust for the conversion rate. So make sure that you get the price in pesos, you do your own conversions. And if you want the price in dollars, make sure that it's for today's rate. So yeah, fluctuation on currency. And then of course there is make sure that you have a legal partner in every single step of the way. There's a little bit of limitation in infrastructure, depending where you buy your lot, your house. If it's a house, probably they'll have to build it, they have to pull electricity from somewhere. But it's a lot in the middle of nowhere, probably water and electricity might be an issue. So make sure the developer you're working with or is selling you something, they have these to the doorstep of your lot, not to the development, because you still have to pull the electricity and the water from the entry of the development, which can be like a kilometer back, or half a mile. So pulling that, and doing that on your own will be hard if you want to be the first ones to build. There's a few issues on landlocked properties where they sell you land where you have no access to. There's not even a road that goes there. So then you'll be having a title on a piece of land somewhere, but you cannot even get there with maybe a helicopter. Like, and that's not illegal. So you might end up buying land. If there's not a road that goes there, there's a risk because you don't know who's gonna open the way to get there. And unless you have a helicopter, then you don't wanna buy that piece of land, right? So there's a lot of things that you need to ask about landlocked. Where is the land located? If it has access to it, if they already have a road to it, if they have water and electricity. Something so simple in the US is something very necessary to ask here. So make sure you ask that question when you're talking about, land purchase. There's a few potential conflicts with agents, I will say that. And I'm gonna say that lightly because I cannot blame any realtor that has a preference for a developer because they're good, but there's some realtors that have loyalty to their sellers more than buyers. And if I'm gonna earn a double commission by selling you this house because I have it listed, I'm just kind of steering you in my direction, and I'm not showing you whatever is good for you. I'm just showing you whatever is good for me as a realtor. So the agents, I mean, it's not a regulated industry again, so then don't expect, like super 100% service because people don't know. They just don't know. And people that just woke up and are a realtor one day and a waiter another day, or they're a taxi driver a different day, or they're like a tour guide a different day, just make sure they do real estate full time, like just do your job right, because that person's gonna be earning a commission that might come from your share, but they will not do the job that they need to do for you to have this benefit of the consulting piece. So make sure that your agent not only has the title and everything else, but they know about their craft. They have property where they say that they're selling, because that's the next point I wanted to touch. And there is no potential of conflict of interest. I will ask my realtor when the first time I bought in Mexico, when I wasn't in real estate, I will ask, hey, because they showed me only 3 things and none of them met the criteria on price or location where I asked. So I had to learn a lot about the bad way, because I had to ask, I mean, is there anything else? Like, that's the only thing that you're showing me 3 things and they're not meeting the criteria that I want. And I realized later on is because they had that listing, exclusive listing as a, seller agent, and she was being my buyer's agent. So she was trying to push me to the property that she had a double commission. So then if you realize that, please don't go with that agent. I mean, everybody's, trying to make a living, but sometimes making a living on, the shoulders of another person is not recommended. Let's go back to. So when it comes to local agents that might not own property, where they are selling you this property, make sure that you ask whether they have a property there or nearby, or if they know the comparables, because once they don't know what are the laws there, they don't know the construction part, or what do you want to do, they don't know what to recommend. So this is super important when it comes to owning property and understanding the market. It's not only in theory, it's also in practice. Some communication barriers will have to do with not only not understanding the language, but also not understanding the terms. For example, for companies and LLCs, or what's an earnest money, what's a deposito, what is a enganche, all these little things might have something that has to do with each other. It has the same meaning or the literal translations, but might not be exactly the same thing that you're thinking. So make sure that the terminology that you use is apart with what you're trying to get to. It's not only the language, it's also the cultural differences, and also, as I mentioned, the terminologies that might not be the same, or we understand certain things certain way, and the literal translation does not translate to whatever they're trying to say to you and whatever you're trying to tell them. So also, one of the last ones is like the tendency of not saying no. And what I mean by that is that many people will just ghost you. They will not reply to your text messages. If you have for example, a realtor that doesn't want to give the bad news that the development is late or something like that, they just stop replying. They're like, okay, sorry, or I'm out of business, or I moved to a different city. So the hesitancy of saying no or giving bad news is something I found very, very common here. And I struggle a little bit because even the interior designer that I recommended, one of my friends, she's not answering her phone when something went wrong, and then she disappeared. So many people just disappear from their business. So we have to make sure that people are working in their industry full-time and not only part-time, and they don't know exactly what they're doing, or when something goes wrong, they ghost you. It's very common here. A lot of we rely on person-to-person recommendations, because for Google, Google My Business, not everybody puts their business online, and also they don't put their reviews. So many people that have reviews listed, probably they have bought the reviews, or it's not necessarily true. Hopefully you read it and you can say it's true, or it sounds genuine. But many people do not even bother to get online reviews in Google. So then at that point, you will have to ask for recommendations from a person that you know. Usually it might be your attorney, your realtor, your friend. If you're somebody that lives there already, please ask always for an in-person to person recommendation. That sometimes is even better than having a Google review, because people first don't use it, and second, they necessarily will trust it. So just keep in mind that not everything shiny is gold, mostly because you will see a lot of developments that have signs, for sale, or this house for sale. And you'll see all these for sale signs, and you get excited, and you'll be like, oh, I want to buy this or that, or why is not that one, showing me that one? Well, the idea is to make sure that anything that we show you is compliant, and not everything that shines is gold. And you'll see a lot of, signs for sale here and for sale there, but make sure you just focusing on the compliance piece, because everything is beautiful here. The houses are amazing, but if it's not compliant, you will not be able to own that property at the end of the day. So keep that in mind. And with that, I will finish. I want to leave my information here, so you can either follow us in YouTube, which you are already in this video, so you might be able to hear, see more of our videos. You can scan this QR code if you don't have our channel, to go straight to subscribe and get all the notifications on what we share each week on compliance, legal, Mexico, new places, new developments, reviewing other developments that we work with or we don't work with, and why we don't work with them. So just make sure that you check our YouTube for the latest news. New development launches every single week, almost, that what's coming into the market, what are the new benefits, it's like being first in line to know what's happening in the market right away. So we do release some videos about that. on new launches. And also, if you want to learn more about real estate internationally, especially in Mexico, we do have talks and webinars about how to do real estate, not only how to buy as an investor, but also how to probably you want to commercialize some of the properties that we have here. And we do pay commissions. So in case you want to be an influencer, you can earn a little commission of the marketing part. So if you are creating content right now and you love real estate and you just don't know, you don't want to go and get your license, you can still be a marketing person for our developments. So please do contact us. You can contact me in the next screen. I'll share my number. And then that way you can become an influencer to work with us and, come and live here and then understand the culture, why we live here. We will have tours of the area, not only in Yucatan, but also in Quintana Roo. So you can do tours of that, understanding, the lay of the land, what are the developments we work with, what are the neighborhoods, how do they look like, and that's open for realtors, that's open for investors, that's open for buyers. So we'll have more coming up for that. And of course, we are covering 24 countries, so we will have world tours that are coming up. So you can sign up for those as well. And I'm gonna leave my information in the next screen, but this one is for YouTube. And this one is for directly texting me, this is our number. And you can always find us in social media. In Instagram is our most used channel. So that way you can either text us, call us, or whatever you need. And that's it. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and then stay tuned for other notifications on what's new and what developments we're launching. Take care.